Yes, repair is super important. Some families just don't address it at all, and then they wait a couple days and then they move on. I think that it's important to actually address something in the traditional way and say, hey, that thing that I did, that was not okay, and I apologize about that. And then if there's two people involved, there's something that someone else did. So the child could learn how to be aware of maybe what they did as well. But it should be important that the person who did the difficult thing can say what they did wrong. I think that when you make that repair, it makes the bond and the connection even stronger than it was before. But if you leave it over and over again, it creates this territory where there's this uncertainty and there's less trust. And I think that it's important to address and then move forward.
Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Fatherhood from the Heart. My name is Efren Martinez Hodia, and I'm a father of 6 amazing children, a long-time educator, and a coach. I created this podcast to inspire and open the hearts of fellow men, fathers, and parents who want to grow and develop a greater connection with their children, their partners, and themselves. It shall also inspire in looking at the importance of our personal growth, the desire in looking at old ideas through new lenses, and the discoveries of our hidden potentials. I'm so glad you're joining me today to listen to my podcast. My guest today is Tal Eyre. Tal has contributed to athletics, humanitarian work, family life, academics, and international business. After being named as senior captain of the 2002-2003 Weber State University basketball team, he helped lead the Wildcats to an undefeated regular season, Big Sky Conference championship, and NCAA tournament berth. After making a lifelong commitment to the lovely Anita in September 2009, Anita and Tal went on a 9-month travel and humanitarian expedition in Africa and India. In December 2011, Anita and Tal welcomed their daughter, Anina, into their family, and Dad Mode was officially activated. Tal went on to earn a Master's of Applied Positive Psychology degree at the University of Pennsylvania, and then applied his learnings with his family and as a Swiss-based leader in global business development. Through it all, Tal's highest priority has remained his family, and Dad Mode reveals some of his key learnings along the way. I hope that you will enjoy my conversation with Tal as much as I did. Hello, Tal. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited having you here. I had learned about you through another podcast, actually. I heard an interview and I saw your book. I was like, wow, now that really is a great resource for fathers. I think there's so many of us that are searching currently for new ways of being a dad, being a father. And your book is just amazing, I have to say. It's just it gives so many wonderful tips and so many practical tools, and it's simple and it's fun to read, and it's just like I think you did an amazing job. First of all,
thank you so much. I love hearing feedback like that. That's exactly why I wrote it, for dads like us. So yes.
That's wonderful. Maybe you could just share a little bit about your background and what inspired you, what led you to write this book?
Yes, sure. So I think the key for our listeners to know is that it's the book is called Dad Mode. It's 25 ways to connect with your children. And I had such a great experience with that. I guess this feeling of connection is the most important thing that I think I learned in my studies. I studied positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. And the kind of the father of positive psychology, as they call him, is Martin Seligman. And he talks a lot about well-being and the importance of having well-being in your life. And that's key to happiness, and they're kind of intertwined in a lot of ways. So basically, connection to me, having a warm connection, is a science-based social science-based way of having a good life. Because what if you have those? The research shows that people that have warm connections in their lives are much happier and healthier. And I think that that's kind of a beautiful connection from my studies through the book, and the outcome is almost amazing as well, because if you have a warm connection most of the time with your children, it's this gift that just keeps on giving. And
Mm-hmm.
Fran, I mean, I know you have 6 children, and I've followed some of your work, and I know how passionate you are about father. And isn't it great when you actually have this warm connection and you just feel this great thing with your son or daughter or children?
Oh, I love it. There's nothing better. It really isn't.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. So
it's
that
so interesting because being a father, a parent, it's just that you have everything, right? You have the emotional roller coaster of ups and downs. You have the that warmth you're talking about. You have the pain. You have the frustration, and that is, I think, something that comes through very beautifully in your book. You know how to keep that warmth going, how to keep that steadiness in your parenting, even through the times where it is a lot more challenging, where it is a lot tougher. So I think
yes.
that's really, yeah.
So thank you for saying that. I think that that's the key message. That red line that goes throughout the entire book is it's the effort that counts. There's so many failures in parenting, but if we can just keep in mind, and I think that's a great thing that my dad did, is he failed so many times as a dad. But he just kept trying. He had that long view in mind, and he knew that in the long run it was going to work out and we were going to get to that place. But there's going to be a lot of failures along the way.
And how do you stand? I mean, can you maybe just speak a little bit more about failures? I think, and particularly for um, the males, it's so hard to fail. You know, we don't like failing. We don't like admitting wrongdoing. We don't like admitting pain. We don't. I mean, that's something that's relatively new, I would say, for the modern male.
Yes.
So, can you speak a little bit more about that and how we can help ourselves? How we can get to a place where it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay, and to even see that as a benefit. You know, because we can grow, we can strengthen ourselves from our own failures, from our own mistakes.
Yes, yes. That brings so many things to mind. Thank you for that question. It was interesting writing the book because I started writing it actually for parents, so mothers and fathers. The more I wrote, my friend, the more I realized that I just I have a voice that goes to dads. I mean, it's just the dad experience is totally different. And so to your point, failing it is a hard thing to do. And I think that points me to the chapter 2, which is self connection. I think I put that at the beginning of the book because we need to look at ourselves and look at why failure is hard for us to swallow, and it is something that's very common among men. And then actually make a conscious effort to actually adapt to that and look for opportunities to see failure and look for opportunities to see where we may be wrong, or we may have made a mistake. And because that's where the learning actually happens. The deepest learning happens when we uncover some failure in our own selves, or in what we've done. And so, in a long way to answer your question, I think that we should actually look for failure. We should create this growth mindset, is what I talk about in the book. Hey, everybody fails along the path, and I'm just gonna model this to my kids as I do it as well. If I fail, I'm gonna say it out loud to my kids and say, "Hey, I'm learning as well. We're all learning, and here we go."
You just spoke about that the self connection. I think that's so crucial. And I mean, I for myself, I can tell you that I discovered that way too late. At at the beginning of my parenting, I always thought the most important thing is that I just do everything for my family, do everything for my kids. I put myself last so many times, and just that discovery of that I actually need to connect with myself so that I can keep going. I will run out of juice eventually, and I did. So can you speak a little bit more about that, because I think that is so important, so crucial for connected parenting.
Yes, thank you for that question. I just did a book launch event in Frankfurt a couple weeks ago, and afterwards, one of the mothers came up to me, and she was there with her husband. She said, "You know what? I loved everything. I thought it was great, but the part that made the most impact on me was at the very beginning. I just mentioned something. I said, I'm cultivating friendships right now that I haven't done in the past. The way that I grew up, it was about being a dad and about making enough money and providing for the family. And I realized that I didn't put any effort into cultivating my friendships with my close friends. And I lost a lot of my close friendships from my university days or whatever because of that. And I am now consciously trying to reconnect with my friends because, to your point, we need to have our own kind of life going as well as dads. And sometimes the role models and the sort of the stereotypes of being a dad steer us away from that. And
Yeah.
so I consciously have to work on my friendships as an example of having a good self-connection, having a little bit of fun with some friends, and kind of having an annual or even sometimes quarterly meeting with friends means a lot because I haven't seen some of them for decades. And so I'm really trying to proactively create those relationships again in my life to have more self-connection.
That's so true. I can, I guess, confirm that. I also do not remember when I've really taken care of my friendships in that way. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for that. Um, One of the things, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, I could just probably go through the entire book and just ask you questions chapter by chapter, but we cannot do that. And also, we want the readers to pick up the book and have that as um, as a beacon to guide them to a better parenting, more connected parenting. But when you do talk a little bit about the four parenting styles, I also thought that was very, very interesting. Can you
Uh-huh.
just share a little bit about the four parenting styles?
Sure. Thank you. Yes. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to put only the best and the most classic research into the book. Because one of the things that happens with social science is a lot of it is hard to be duplicated. And there's a little bit of a duplication crisis going on right now in the social sciences because social sciences is just a kind of a nebulous, hard thing to kind of make into science. And so, one of the things that is really classic about social science is the four parenting styles. This has been around since the late 1960s, and it's still a gold standard way of talking about parenting styles. So, I really highlight this in the book. And basically, what it is the four are authoritarian, and that would be a dad who says, because I said so, has no interest in their child understanding why, but just because I said so. And that is not an ideal parenting style in my opinion. Then you've got the authoritative, which is kind of a funny little play on words, but authoritative is nice because it's like authoritarian, but what happens is the dad then explains why, and they're not quite as heavy on the topic. So they'll be demanding, they'll say, okay, you need to get off of that device in 25 minutes. And it's because we need to have dinner. And if you have any questions about that, that's fine. But in 25 minutes, I will walk in and I will take the device from you. Or, and then they say, well, what if, the episode is 28 minutes. Okay, I can do 28 minutes. I'm setting the alarm right now on my phone. I'm going to walk back in and get this device from you. Okay. And then you have to follow up and actually do it. That would be an example of a authoritative parenting style. Then you've got permissive parenting, which is kind of letting your child kind of do a lot of things, whatever they want, and being permissive. And that's the style that I struggled with quite strongly before reading and writing this book, grading on this topic about this book. And being permissive is just in my nature. I like to just kind of be permissive. But I've learned so much about the importance of being authoritative that I'm now becoming more of an authoritative guy. And the last one is neglectful. It's basically not doing anything, totally hands off, and it's proven to be really not healthy for children at all. So the best one is the authoritative for parents and for coaches and for anybody around that area. In my opinion, is the best way to go. And I'm trying to be an authoritative.
That sounds wonderful. I think I too have some work to do there from what I read in your book. I can also improve my style.
Yes. Okay. And tell me more, actually. Could you tell me more about that? Because
I think I've gone through phases. I think, I grew up in a fairly strict household, and I think, no matter what you do take some things with you and implement that when you have children. And so while I was quite permissive, and I also think, I've always been very warm towards my children and very physical, very loving. But especially in moments of trigger or moments of stress or moments where things are challenging, I think I did have my moments where it was more authoritarian than anything else. So I think that's, I did, while reading your book, I could see that a little bit. That's okay. That's where it was. And then I switched over to being more permissive than authoritative, and finding that middle, I think is like, where you have that firmness, that warm firmness that you speak about. That is a very nice place, where you're guiding them, you're supporting them, but you're still like, okay, I'm still your parent. I'm still here to support you, to guide you, and to show you that certain things are just, better for you because, well, I know, or because I have my own experiences. Yeah.
Right. I couldn't say it any better, friend. I love hearing that because that's exactly the point I was trying to get across. So no further comment. Thank you for, we're all in the process of working on that. So
that's right. You were talking about devices, so let's just stick with that a little bit as well, because I think that is such a big issue nowadays with teens in particular. There's a lot of research out there how damaging they have become, in their emotional development, in their even physical development, just being hunched over there for so many hours, and how many incredible, how much time they waste really being manipulated by these little devices. You write quite nicely, I think, in your book, how to help parents find the right balance. What were some of the challenges that you discovered as a dad, also in your work, that you've discovered in working with this particular issue?
Yeah, thanks. Again, I feel like, friend, I would like to learn from you on this topic because you have 6 children. One of the things that's a little limiting for me is I have one daughter. She's 12 years old. And I think it was also a benefit because it helped me to have enough time to actually try and write a book. But having one child provides other challenges. But my experience with her, I will tell you, and then I'd love to know about some of the things that you might be dealing with, maybe that other dads listening, parents might be interested in as well. So let me just say, for me, my favorite thing is this situation modification. It's this thing brought by Angela Duckworth. She was one of my favorite teachers ever. I got to be in her class, and she basically said there's enough research to say that if you can't see something, if it's out of your eyesight and out of your earshot, you actually aren't as tempted, or you're not really going to think about it. And so what we try and do in the house, which really does help, is we have rules around devices at the dinner table, and also out, really not in the bedroom. And those two things, I think that's two kind of easy things to remember around this topic. And if you can really stay authoritative about those two things, you're on a good track. And then you have to read the room that you're in. So my situation with one child, a friend, is different than yours, and it's also um, my daughter is actually not she doesn't have a personality where she just locks into wanting to like go on social media all the time or anything. Actually, she doesn't really like to go on there very much, and I've witnessed that enough over the last few years that she's more interested in watching a sitcom or an episode of a Netflix show, which is its own challenge. But you need to read, each child. There was some children that we went camping with this summer, and they were just so dialed in to being on the phone 24/7. They needed to be on it, and it was kind of nice to juxtapose that with my daughter and see, okay, there's just so many different personalities around this that each dad needs to read the room that they're in and find out what would be the right mix to help their child to have a good experience. So I wonder if you could share some of your experiences and talk more on this topic.
I think just like what I was saying with the last topic, and I've gone through ups and downs on that one, and also the times have changed. My first children were all born pre the iPhone era or the smartphone era. So that there's been a big switch on that. The, the iPhones became big when they were teenagers, and yes, of course, they all wanted one. I think we did quite all right in keeping them away from them until we had a rule that, okay, once you get into high school, you can have one. And at that point, also, we were able to set certain rules around, dinner table and bedrooms and things like that, that were very important to me. I have to say, with my two younger children, I am separated now. They don't live with me. It's been more challenging, and just as much because they are, um, well, I wanted to be in connection with them through something, so I gave in much quicker, and especially with my youngest daughter, or not my youngest daughter, but my pre-last daughter, she is 12 also, like yours, and I just gave her a phone much earlier, and for her, it's affected her, and I do regret it. I do have to say it. Um, Interestingly enough, I interviewed my 16-year-old son as part of this podcast, and he does talk about devices, and he's very aware how much they impact him and how much they impact this generation. And he talks quite openly about it. And he wants to, and he just talks about the power that they have over him and how it does impact the mental health of so many teenagers. And he's working currently on changing that up consciously, and he wants to give up his smartphone. He's working on this new phone called the Light phone, which has all the phone. I don't know if you know about it, but it has all the abilities of a smartphone, but it does not have social media or email. So that takes a lot of those distractions away. And so he's working on doing that. And with our youngest, she's still a child, so I'm very much looking forward to really looking at this challenge, which I think could be one of the biggest challenges of this generation, the smartphones and the social media and all of that. I'm looking forward to, setting new rules and looking at new ways of protecting her for as long as I can. And of course, who knows where she will be at or where the times are going to be at. She's a preteen or a teenager.
Oh, wow. Just hearing you talk makes me think you're doing a great job, first of all. And also, I really like what you said, how your son is seeing what it's doing to him. And I think that a lot of teenagers, we don't give them enough credit because I think that they do feel that in those quiet moments when they feel like, oh, this is taking up a lot of my time. Their parents aren't around, or they get into some stuff that they're not comfortable with and it makes them feel agitated or whatever. I mean, I think that I've seen this in my nephews recently. They came to me and they said, look at my phone. I actually changed my phone so that it's only in black and white and it makes it less appealing to me. I don't want to be on there. I want to go work out. I want to go do things with
Yeah.
people. But my phone is making it. So I'm trying to purposely change my phone so that I don't have those problems. So the more we can get children and teenagers to feel their own control in this, the better. And that reminds me of the one chapter in my book about the locus of control. I love this concept because if we can, as parents, slowly transfer the locus of control from external, from maybe their parents talking to them and telling them they shouldn't use a phone, to an internal locus of control where they're saying, you know what, I'm not gonna use the phone as much because I don't feel very good when I do it. And then having the support of the parents in that. I think that's a really nice model.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you just say a little bit more about the locus control, just to explain to the listeners here that haven't read your book?
Yes. I love this concept because it's another psychological concept. It sounds a little strange when you first hear it, locus of control, but it literally just means exactly that, the locality of control. If it's external, there's a lot of studies that have said that it's not quite as healthy for your well-being to have an external locus of control. So think about a mother or father telling their child, they're out on the soccer field and they're yelling, hey, go to the left, go to the right, do this, do that. And the child is trying to sort of play the game that their parents are telling them to play. But wouldn't it be better if that child had their own internal locus control where they're saying, this is what I need to do to win this game or to help my team. I need to go this way and do this. And that's the kind of thing that correlates really highly with higher levels of well-being. Is if you have an internal locus of control in most of the things in your life.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Tal, you speak one of the things that I think we all have gone through as a dad, losing our cool. I think we all have gone through that. It is more often than not, I would say it's a very scary moment for the children, often one that also creates long-term trauma and fears if not handled properly. And so you speak a little bit about that, and you also talk about the volcano. Maybe you can explain the volcano here to our listeners a little bit, because I love that as an image. But also, is what can you do, or what can we as fathers do to, well, we cannot prevent it, but we can learn. We can learn what has happened. We can review it. We can, what can we do to finding ways to not get into a repetitive pattern of yelling at our children?
Yes, I'm happy to address that. Basically, yes, we all lose our cool. We all get into this fight flight mode, or sometimes freeze, and we get into a place where we regret that and we're not happy about it. And the first thing is, a lot of these things are passed down from generation to generation. There are these neural pathways that are passed from our fathers and their fathers and all the way up. And the first thing we need to do is, I think, sort of try to restart and have a new start on this. And realize that we're going to get it wrong sometimes, but I really think that just like you introduced it, it's dangerous for the kids because you don't realize that you're big adult male person that is upset, you just think you're upset. But to a child, it's actually quite scary when their parent is extremely mad, maybe red in the face. They can see it in their eyes, and we want to eliminate as many times as possible that. That's the goal that I talk about in the book. Is how do we eliminate that? And one of the things we can do is, and this is maybe for a little bit younger kids, but it could work with older ones as well if you did it right. But I give this image of a volcano, and it's something I learned from a different parenting book where um, you talk about the different levels of a volcano. So in the green zone, it's down where the trees are. There's no problem. You're in a great space. Yellow zone, it's getting a little bit warmer up there. But when you're in the red zone, you're just about to erupt. Um, I don't know, something about having these three levels helps you as a dad to think about it, but also helps you to verbalize it with the child. So, for an example, you would say, "Hey, look, I've been in the green zone all day today. I'm feeling great. But what just happened right there made me go into that yellow zone, and I really don't want to get upset. I don't want to have an eruption. So if we can stop from that, that would be great. If not, I need to take a break for about 20 minutes because I'm really close to an eruption, and I don't want to have that." And so that kind of language is just a nice way to kind of just make everyone involved aware that we are human and we may be very upset or triggered by something, and we need to kind of calm down. And that's uh, that's kind of the idea of this of volcano dad and keeping our cool more often.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that as an image. And do you also have a visual to that, or is it just something that you express and such with your child?
Yeah, there's a picture. We've got this great illustrator. He's a Brazilian guy from the Sao Paulo area, and he did all the illustrations in the book. Each way has a nice illustration, and in the book there's a nice illustration of this volcano dad that you could hold up or you could print out and show your child as you're explaining it as well.
Love that. And of course, after we've had one of those eruptions, it's crucial to make a repair, or else, we get into these situations where the fear kicks in, and you speak quite beautifully about that. I think that's a very, very important chapter, that chapter of repair and forgiveness. I think that's beautifully said. And maybe you can just also, I think you call it, I'm not sure, you're gonna have to maybe you have to correct me on this. Is it the economy of repair that you use that as a phrase?
Yeah. Well, I'm just so glad that you actually read that. It makes me so happy when people have read things. So it's something like that, and I'm happy to pick up right where you
Yeah.
left off. Basically, um, yes, repair is super important. There's some families who have passed down again this trail, or they have these ruts of how repair was done in their own family. Some families just don't address it at all, and then they wait a couple days and then they move on. Some families have a different way of kind of middle of the road, sort of, hey, that wasn't very cool, and then they move on. But I think that it's important to actually address something in the traditional way and say, hey, that thing that I did, that was not okay, and I apologize about that. And then usually there's two people involved. There's something that someone else did, so the child could learn how to be aware of maybe what they did as well. But it should be important that the person who did the difficult thing can say what they did wrong, not necessarily pointing at what the other person did wrong. So it takes a little while to work with kids on that. But I think that when you make that repair, it makes the bond and the connection even stronger than it was before. But if you leave it over and over again, it creates this territory where there's this uncertainty and there's less trust, And I think that it's important to address and then move forward. What we say in our family is small things, we can do it quickly. We can say things quickly. If they're bigger things, we can take time and even days and whatever weeks, but we do try and repair whenever there's a rupture like that. And then you asked the question real quick about the economy part, and what they did this big survey with Uber car share. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Uber, they were trying to figure out, what happened when somebody was late when they picked someone up for an Uber car share ride, and they had this huge amount of data, and basically they learned that it wasn't an apology that actually helped in that case. It was an apology plus a attempt to do something costly for that person. And I love that concept because with my daughter, we have this funny story in our family where she hates it when I put food on her plate without her asking. And she kept telling me, Dad, don't do that. And I was so mad because I just prepared this meal. I was all super excited about her tasting it. It's just what she may want. And she's like, no, don't put it on my plate. I'll take how much I need on my plate. And after a bunch of times of me doing this, she really put her foot down to her credit. And I said, and I was studying about this topic, and I said, okay, the next time I put some food on your plate without you asking me or without your consent, we will go to the store and we'll get a pack of your favorite gummy treats. And she loves gummy treats, right? So she's like super, super jazzed up about this. It's a small, costly thing. But because of that, it made me aware of how often I was doing this. And it made her super aware as well of how she was going to catch me, right?
Yeah.
So after only a few days, I had cooked up some things and I had some toast. And I pulled the toast out. It was super hot in my hand, and I had to drop it on her plate. And she goes, "I got you!" And sure enough, we had to go and get her favorite gummy bears. It was a small thing, but it really made a difference to her, and it made a difference to me in how the apology was done. And to this day, I'm still much more careful about what I put on the plate.
Lesson learned.
Yes. Yes.
You also speak about humility, intellectual humility. And I'm just going to pick up on that a little bit because I think my observation is that for us dads, that tends to be a sensitive subject because we like to know everything and we like to pretend that we know everything to our children because we want to be the heroes. And, I think that I know for sure that I've done it. They know, of course, it's a joke, but I've often said, yeah, I know everything. I know everything. And, this is like, in retrospect, it's like, why did I do that? But I think it's, again, this, in a way, we don't like to show that we don't know, and that we, as men in particular,
Right.
more so than women, I think. So I love the chapter that you write about because I think it is so important to give them the guidance, to give them the confidence, and yet to also show that you're vulnerable, that you have things that you don't know and that you are still working. So can you talk a little bit about that as well, your discoveries there, and how we can, as men, become a little bit more humble around particularly the things that we don't know?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. I have to say, my thinking on that was highly influenced by Adam Grant, who's one of my favorite writers. He wrote the book Think Again, which I highly recommend. It's a business book, but it's also just in general for everything. The importance of rethinking, having that sort of growth mindset around almost everything in life or everything in life. It's so powerful to rethink. But and so when it comes to your question, um, it was really Adam Grant who got me thinking about this because he talks about confident humility, and he says, "Hey, you can still be confident but we need to have this thing called intellectual humility where we don't know everything. In fact, he challenges us to think like a scientist rather than think like a preacher. So if you think about a scientist, a scientist has this great method where they're trying to continuously debunk old ways of thinking and learn more and more. And the best scientists that I know and the ones that I respect the most are those who get excited about being wrong. They say, you know what? Tell me how I was wrong on this, because I'm not a preacher here. I don't think I have the corner on everything. I actually want to know how I'm wrong. Maybe you have something to teach me, instead of this other mindset of I know everything, you know, and get really upset when people tell me otherwise. And that is a natural tendency for us men as well to try and do that. And my wife could tell you over and over again how I've done that throughout our marriage. But I think that as writing this book, I've really turned toward this intellectual humility again. Because our kids are growing up in a more and more polarized world now, where they're taught one thing on social media, and then they have all their friends saying the exact same thing. They don't see the other side of that topic. But if we as parents say, you know what, I could be wrong on this, but I think that this actually is the right way to do this, then they also will start saying the same thing, and they'll start thinking in the same way. They'll say, well, I think this is the right way to go. I could be wrong, but I'm going to confidently try. And if I'm wrong, great, let's figure out a better way. So hopefully that covers the topic a little bit for you. But I just love this topic because in this day and age, in America especially, where we've got so much polarization right now in politics, wouldn't it be amazing if we had people saying a little bit more of that in politics?
Yeah.
Where they're saying, you know what, I could be wrong about that. Tell me what I'm missing. Instead of just being, I'm right. There's no other way.
No, I agree. No, that's why I think it's such an important point that you bring up there. And that's definitely something that I try in my conversations with my teenage son. He's been living with me for a while this year, which I loved. And we just had so many conversations, and I always challenge him and say, well, are you sure that's, did you look at it this way? Did you try? Because it's again, yeah, like you said, that information from social media. Well, these are the bad people. These are the good people. It's like, well, the world's not just black and white. You need to question everything. You need to look at things. You need to make sure that you create your own opinion and you're not just taking the opinion. And I do see that. Yes, I do see that he's now also taking that on. So that's absolutely right what you're also saying. And to go out there with that humility that, we can only accept that we don't know. We can just create our own path. We can walk our own path and figure things out as we go and inform ourselves as much as we can with different opinions. That's what in the end is going to make us be truly independent and free. So I love that chapter for sure.
Great. Wow. I'm so glad it helped with your son too. I remember being that age and thinking I knew everything. I still remember that. I was like, well, I know everything. My parents they're so lost. I know everything. And it's just part of that development, right? It's funny, but that's great that you've been introducing that.
Yeah. Let's talk about sex. I think that's that's such a great chapter too. I know I was failed, first of all, by my parents big time on that topic. They never talked about sex. It was one of those things that, just was never talked about. So I had to find out everything myself, which is not always the healthy way of doing it. And I think that even with my children, as I had more children, I got better at it. But it was not my forte because I had not had that right foundation growing up. And so I love what you talk in your book. That was very insightful to me. And one of the questions that I had is like, you talk a lot about it being a teamwork with your spouse, with your partner, with You taking out your daughter, you're having these conversations. The ongoing part really was a, a real great insight for me. But how would you now help or suggest that a single mom or single dad approach the subject, particularly with the opposite sex?
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So I appreciate what you said, and for those that haven't read the book, I think there's a few of them out there. Um, the the topic is an ongoing conversation about sex, and I really feel strongly about that. And it's not like once every 2 weeks or something like that, but it's there are just times that it comes into your mind, and really for me, it's every few months. And I just say, it was just 2 nights ago for me. I was helping my daughter get to bed, and I said, "Hey, just been through some things this summer, and a lot of people you've been exposed to, and a lot of things that you've seen. Do you have any questions about anything? You're growing up now, and you may be thinking about things a little bit differently. And we just I just want to keep this conversation going. And if you have any questions or you have anything that you maybe would like to talk with me about." And she didn't. She really didn't, and she was fun, but she was totally comfortable. It wasn't something too difficult because it's been an ongoing conversation. If this was once a year or once every 5 years, I think you lose them. But if you have this ongoing piece, then it really goes well. So for me, I've been surprised how well it's gone. To be honest, like um, my daughter, which she'll talk with me about things that I'm just like, yeah, great. Yeah, let's talk about that. And it almost throws me off because I'm like, this actually is working, like she's open, she knows it's a safe place to discuss things, and that's really important to me. And I really, it's just a little testimonial for everyone listening that it actually does work because it's surprising to me a few times. But basically, to answer your question about the single, there are so many single parents out there, and I'm very aware of that. In fact, I think that that's more common than married people in a lot of places. And I think that you need to find ways to work with that. So if you are a single mom or a single dad, listening to this, I would say follow the same playbook, make it an ongoing conversation. And if you need to pull in a woman's voice or a man's voice, um, or whatever situation is in your family, then just go ahead and do that and pull people in that you trust that could help with that situation. Um, and I think that with that, um, you should be able to figure out how to do this and have this ongoing conversation. But the biggest point that I always make is that and it's something that my parents taught me, it's a beautiful thing. Sex is a beautiful thing um, that should be looked forward to. And it's not something, and sometimes it's portrayed in ways that are not very beautiful in my opinion. But overall, it's something that is amazing, and it should be shared with people that you really care about and that you're committed to for at least that act, or for more important long-term goals. But whatever anybody decides on that is important, but they need to know that it's a beautiful thing and that it's something to be looked forward to.
Okay. And how would you help parents who grew up a little bit like me and may not have had the chance to work through it, who just don't know how to even start, that it's just too hard for them to even bring up that subject to the
Yeah.
children?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you're still before about the age of 6 to 8, I think you have this great opportunity to set a formal date where you feel like they're ready and they can talk about these kind of things. We chose 7 years old. I was told when I was 8 about the whole topic of sex and sort of the overall view of what it is. And I think that if they're an older age, I think that I don't really know. I don't know exactly how they should do that. I'm not. I guess I don't want to try and go into something that I don't know a whole lot about because that's not been my experience. But I would say work your way in with small steps, no matter what age they're at, because it's a lot better to have a dialogue around than an awkward conversation.
Thank you. Tal, I have so many more questions, but I'm seeing like the time is like keeps running here. So there's so many incredible treasures that you have in your book, and I will just point pains to go and buy your book, download it, whichever way they're going to read it. But there's so much in there. I love also at the end how you bring it together with the importance of family culture and creating a family vision, mission statement. I just love those ideas. I mean, there's really an incredible amount of wealth in your book, and I really would recommend it to any parent out there who wants to improve their connection to the children.
Thank
I
you.
I don't know. Thank you for taking the time and writing it. It's really inspiring. Tal, I do have a few signature questions I'm going to ask you that I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
And the first one, if you had the opportunity to go back to your younger self with the knowledge that you have now, what would you tell your younger self?
Hmm. I was just thinking about um, something today that I wanted to share with you, and that is that as dads, sometimes we feel like we are not making any difference. It doesn't matter if we're there or we're not. The mom is kind of running things, and what are we even doing? We're a total third wheel. Like, you're not even helping. And I would tell myself, stay going to those moments and realize that even though you don't feel like you're being helpful in that moment, being there and trying and yeah, just being there is super important. And I think that's what I would tell myself to remember because there's a lot of times in the dad's life, but the way that the family is set up, that the mom is sort of the number one and the dad is the number two. And and that's okay in some cases, but my goal is to help make a direct connection with kids as well. Sometimes that's pretty hard to do. But that's what I would tell myself. Stay with that. Stay showing that.
Right, and connection, and you also do mention that connection starts pre-birth. It starts already in the
Yes.
womb. And I think that that's,
Yeah.
of course, something that, I'm speaking for myself, but I think many parents, it's such an abstract, the pregnancy can be very abstract and hard to connect with the child at that point, right? It's once it's there, obviously, it's like the floodgates open and just all that love and connection begins. But pre-birth, sometimes it's a little bit challenging. But so, yeah, I think that's beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, if you had an opportunity to look back at yourself, and is there something that you never heard from your dad that you wish you had heard?
I guess one of the things is that there was just not enough time um, for for every child. So I grew up in a family of 9 children, and it would have been nice probably to have a little bit more one-on-one time with my dad. Um, I think that I'm kind of having to pull for that though because he was really good at trying to be individual with each child. Um, but just a matter of numbers. There's not enough time in the day to be one-on-one as often. So I think that maybe would be one thing that would come to mind.
What is your favorite activity with your child or with your family?
My favorite activity over the last 10 years, going on 11, has been to go camping. We go out to the Blue Mountains of Oregon, up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and we just have a blast. We do unstructured play. It's really a lot of play for the dads as well, but it's just dads and all kids, boys and girls. They have a rule now that it's like 5 and up can go to Oregon, and sometimes a 4-year-old will just campaign for their chance to go, and all the kids try to go whole year round because they want to build something new up there. We build all these little tree platforms and
I know, I
start
love that.
planting different things between the trees and around in the forest. And we don't see anyone while we're up there for 4 days because it's
That's
so
great.
far in the wilderness. And there's some dangerous stuff happening. We've been trying to make sure we're safe, but also giving them the ability to try to do dangerous things. And so far, over 10 years, there hasn't been any major accidents or anything, and they just love it, and we love it at that because we get away, we hang out with my brothers, with my cousin, and we just sit around the campfire and hang out. It's just a wonderful time. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I love that part. I do say it made me a little bit envious. It's like I wish I had like something like that. It's just such a wonderful activity for on all levels. That you're hanging out together as men, that you have the children with you, that the children can learn something, that they are engaging in activity out in nature, that they are doing a little bit of the dangerous play, which I think is so important for the development of a child. And so many children are growing in overprotective homes or barely going outside. So I think that's, again, just wonderful, wonderful stuff that you do out there.
Thank you.
My last question for you, Tal. What do you do to stay connected with yourself and to work on yourself?
First thing that comes to my mind is just I exercise. My dad had a little bit of heart trouble over the last few years, and I think a similar situation as he does. We're both tall men, and we need to take good care of our hearts. And so I go and make sure I get some cardio on a regular basis. Most days of the week, I'm out at least for 20 minutes, making sure I get my heart rate up. So that's what I do to make sure that I'm fit and ready as a dad and as a person for my partner and for my family.
Wonderful. Yeah, sure. Well, Tal, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me. I cannot wait to share this episode. I was really excited about this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's super cool to talk to somebody who is in the battle as well and who's thought about a lot of things as well. And I'm so happy to be a part of the podcast. So I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time and listening to my podcast today. If you want to learn more about me, check out my website, www.fatherhoodfromtheheart.com. There you will find information about my coaching offers and approach. I would be honored to accompany you on your path, be it on your own or with a parent, partner, daughter, or son. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and link and share this episode so that more can hear, learn, and grow from the wisdom of my guests. I would also be incredibly grateful if you could rate and review the show, and please don't forget to leave a comment. I will end the show for now, but remember to be kind to yourself. Until next time, I say goodbye and send love and gratitude from my heart to yours.